All right, guys, let's talk about one of the most effective ways I've seen to completely reset your metabolism, combining fasting with the carnivore diet. This isn't about starving yourself. It's about unlocking your body's natural ability to burn fat efficiently. When you remove carbs and extend fasting windows, your body shifts gears into deep ketosis, a state where fat becomes your primary fuel, not sugar. And once that happens, everything changes. Energy levels stabilize, hunger drops, mental clarity improves, and fat loss becomes effortless. Most people today are trapped in a cycle of blood sugar spikes and crashes. Every few hours, their body is begging for another hit of glucose just to function. That's not how the human body was designed to operate. When you combine fasting with a meat-based zero carb diet, you take control of your metabolism. Again, insulin drops, inflammation goes down, and the body starts tapping into those deep energy reserves, the fat that's been sitting around your midsection for years. This isn't just surface level fat either. We're talking about the visceral fat around your organs that drives disease, hormonal imbalance, and fatigue. I've seen thousands of people use this exact approach to break through long-term plateaus. People who were stuck despite calorie counting, cardio, and conventional diets. Once they cut the carbs and introduced fasting, their bodies responded almost immediately. The combination creates a perfect metabolic storm: low insulin, high fat oxidation, and complete appetite control. You stop chasing meals and your body starts feeding on its own energy stores. What's powerful about this is that it's natural. There's no magic supplement or complex system. It's just physiology working the way it's supposed to. When you fast on carnivore, you're not fighting your body, you're aligning with how it's meant to function: efficient, lean, and metabolically sharp. When you take away carbohydrates and extend fasting windows, you're not depriving your body, you're reprogramming it. The modern diet keeps people locked in glucose dependence. Every few hours, another spike, another crash, another craving. That cycle keeps the mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside your cells, sluggish and inefficient. They become accustomed to easy fuel from sugar and forget how to access the vast reserves of fat stored in your body. But once you pull the carbs and stop feeding constantly, the body has no choice but to adapt. It switches fuel systems from sugar to fat, and that shift changes everything about how you produce and utilize energy. The first thing that happens when you cut carbs and fast is a drop in insulin levels. Insulin is the gatekeeper of energy storage. When it's elevated, fat burning is shut off. By keeping insulin low, you open the door for fat oxidation. The liver begins converting fatty acids into ketones, a cleaner and more stable energy source. Unlike glucose, which burns hot and dirty, creating oxidative stress and inflammation, ketones burn clean, feeding both the brain and muscles efficiently. That's why people describe mental clarity and steady energy once they adapt. Their mitochondria are literally running on a higher quality fuel. When glucose stops flooding your system, your cells start upregulating fat oxidizing enzymes. This is metabolic flexibility, the ability to move seamlessly between fuel sources instead of being locked into one. The mitochondria grow stronger, denser, and more efficient. You're teaching your body to thrive in a low insulin, high fat environment, exactly how humans evolved to function during times of scarcity. Our ancestors didn't graze all day. They went long stretches without food, then ate nutrient-dense animal foods that kept them strong and lean. That's the blueprint the carnivore fast follows. During fasting, something else happens. A cellular cleanup process called autophagy. Damaged proteins and dysfunctional mitochondria are recycled and replaced with new, efficient ones. It's like tuning up an engine that's been running on bad fuel for decades. Your cells clear out waste, improve their energy output, and communicate better. This rejuvenation effect is one of the reasons people notice sharper focus, less inflammation, and better recovery even before major fat loss occurs. The body is literally rebuilding itself from the inside out. As fat becomes your dominant fuel, hormonal signaling shifts, leptin sensitivity improves, which means your brain finally gets accurate feedback about stored energy. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, stabilizes. No more constant appetite swings. Cortisol and growth hormone find balance, helping preserve muscle while fat is being burned for energy. These hormonal adaptations are why carnivore fasting feels sustainable instead of restrictive. You're not white knuckling hunger, you're just not hungry. Another major benefit is mitochondrial biogenesis, your body's way of building new mitochondria. When you fast and stay in ketosis, the demand for efficient energy production goes up. Your cells respond by creating more powerhouses to meet that need. More mitochondria means better energy throughput, improved endurance, and faster metabolic rate. It's not just about losing fat, it's about optimizing how every cell functions. Most people who switch to carnivore fasting report a complete turnaround in their daily energy rhythm. Instead of post-meal fatigue and brain fog, they experience stable energy from morning to night. This happens because the body no longer depends on glucose peaks to function. The fat adaptation process creates a steady fuel line, like switching from a flickering campfire to a clean, burning engine. You're not chasing snacks. Your metabolism runs on autopilot. Over time, this metabolic reset breaks years of damage caused by constant eating and processed carbs. Insulin sensitivity returns, inflammation markers drop, and triglycerides normalize. The mitochondria run cooler and cleaner, producing less oxidative stress. It's like removing sludge from a machine that's been gummed up for years. Every system, from your brain to your liver to your muscles, operates more efficiently. This is why combining fasting with carnivore nutrition is so powerful. Each reinforces the other. Fasting lowers insulin and triggers repair. Meat-based nutrition provides the amino acids and fats to rebuild stronger tissue. Together, they restore the metabolic flexibility that modern eating habits have destroyed. You don't just lose weight, you rebuild the foundation of energy production itself. The body becomes what it was meant to be: resilient, efficient, and powered by fat, not sugar. When you combine fasting with a carnivore diet, the body enters a metabolic gear that most people never experience in modern life: deep ketosis. This is not the mild state you reach by cutting carbs for a few days. This is a full metabolic transition where your body becomes a fat-burning furnace. Once glucose and glycogen stores are depleted, the liver steps in to convert fatty acids into ketones, beta-hydroxybutyrate acetoacetate, and acetone. These ketones circulate through your bloodstream, feeding the brain, heart, and muscles with clean, efficient energy. It's the body's original design, a survival mechanism that turns scarcity into strength. During fasting, insulin remains at its lowest, allowing unrestricted fat mobilization. At the same time, eating carnivore, high in fat and protein, zero carbs, ensures there's no new glucose coming in to interrupt this process. The combination amplifies ketone production to its peak. Every cell in your body starts operating on fat-derived fuel. What's fascinating is how targeted this process becomes. Your body preferentially pulls energy from visceral fat, the deep, hidden fat stored around organs like the liver, pancreas, and intestines. This fat is highly metabolically active, and when insulin drops, it's the first to go. You're not just getting leaner on the surface, you're cleaning up the most dangerous type of fat linked to metabolic disease. As ketone levels rise, the body experiences a metabolic cascade. Fat oxidation rates skyrocket because you're burning stored triglycerides at an accelerated pace. The liver becomes a high output energy converter, processing fatty acids into ketones continuously. Muscle tissue adapts by increasing mitochondrial density, improving its ability to burn fat directly. This dual adaptation from both fasting and the carnivore diet creates a constant fat-fueled energy cycle. You wake up with steady focus, no cravings, and a metabolism running on its most efficient fuel source. Deep ketosis does more than just provide energy, changes the hormonal environment that controls fat storage. Low insulin signals the body that it's safe to release fat. Elevated glucagon growth hormone and norepinephrine promote lipolysis, the breakdown of stored fat into usable energy. These hormones thrive in a fasted, low-carb state. They're the same hormones that our ancestors relied on during long hunts or food scarcity, keeping them alert and energized. That's why people report mental clarity and heightened performance when fasting on carnivore. The brain runs exceptionally well on ketones. What's remarkable is that ketones themselves act as metabolic regulators. They improve mitochondrial efficiency, reduce oxidative stress, and even suppress hunger. The body starts to prefer this clean energy, and the need for frequent meals disappears. When glucose is gone and fat takes over, your energy becomes steady, predictable, and powerful. This is the opposite of the modern diet roller coaster. No mid-afternoon crashes, no dependence on caffeine or sugar to function. You're tapping into thousands of stored calories sitting on your own body, and the supply is virtually limitless. Visceral fat reduction is one of the most profound outcomes of deep ketosis. Unlike subcutaneous fat, which serves as a superficial energy reserve, visceral fat is hormonally active and inflammatory. It releases cytokines that disrupt metabolism and insulin signaling. When fasting and carnivore eating push your body into fat-burning dominance, that visceral fat is rapidly oxidized. Studies show that fasting increases growth hormone secretion and lipolytic enzyme activity, both of which help target internal fat stores. You can literally see it happen. Waistlines shrink, inflammation drops, and energy levels surge. The body prioritizes health restoration over simple weight loss. Another key mechanism behind enhanced fat oxidation is the adaptation of the mitochondria. In deep ketosis, mitochondrial biogenesis increases, meaning you grow more energy-producing units in your cells. These mitochondria are trained to burn fat as their primary substrate, which creates a positive feedback loop. The more fat you burn, the more efficient your cells become at burning it. Over time, your resting metabolic rate may even increase because your body becomes a high-efficiency engine rather than a storage tank. Carnivore fasting takes the guesswork out of ketosis because there are no carbs to interfere. The metabolic state is stable and consistent. You're not dipping in and out of ketosis like most low-carb eaters do. You're locked in. Every hour of fasting deepens fat mobilization, and every carnivore meal refuels your system with pure fat and amino acids to support muscle maintenance. It's the perfect environment for body recomposition, burning fat while preserving lean tissue. This is the metabolic reset most people never achieve with ordinary dieting. Deep ketosis powered by fasting and carnivore nutrition doesn't just help you lose fat, it transforms the way your body sources energy altogether. Once the system is engaged, fat oxidation becomes your baseline state. You move, think, and perform on a level of efficiency the modern sugar-fed metabolism can't touch. It's not just fat loss, it's metabolic freedom. When you combine fasting with a low-carb carnivore diet, one of the most powerful things that happens is insulin stabilization. For most people, insulin is the silent driver behind weight gain, fatigue, and stubborn belly fat. Every time you eat carbs or snack between meals, insulin rises to deal with the glucose surge. Over time, those constant spikes desensitize your receptors. The body needs more and more insulin just to move the same amount of glucose out of the blood. That's the root of metabolic dysfunction. Chronically high insulin, even when blood sugar looks normal, once that happens, fat loss slows to a crawl because insulin is the hormone that locks fat inside your cells. Lowering it is the only way to truly access stored energy. When you remove carbohydrates and extend fasting windows, insulin levels naturally fall. There's no sugar to manage, no glucose swings to trigger response. Instead, the body starts operating in a low insulin environment, something most modern eaters never experience. As insulin drops, receptors on your cells begin to reset. They become more sensitive again, responding efficiently to smaller signals. This is what we call improved insulin sensitivity, and it's the foundation of metabolic health. Your body no longer needs to flood the bloodstream with insulin to do its job. That single change unlocks fat burning potential and restores hormonal balance. Fasting accelerates this process by giving your pancreas a break. When you go long stretches without food, insulin production pauses. That rest period allows the body to repair receptor pathways and reduce background inflammation, which often interferes with insulin signaling. Combined with carnivore nutrition, pure protein, and fat with zero carbohydrates, you're giving the system the cleanest possible reset. Protein triggers only a minimal insulin response, and dietary fat triggers virtually none. You're feeding the body without disrupting its hormonal balance. As baseline insulin drops, the effects cascade throughout the entire body. The liver becomes more efficient at releasing stored fat and producing ketones. The muscles start absorbing nutrients again without resistance. The brain experiences stable energy flow instead of depending on blood sugar spikes. Most importantly, the fat cells, especially those in the abdominal region, become accessible. Visceral fat around the liver and pancreas thrives under high insulin conditions. But when insulin remains low, those same fat deposits are released and oxidized for fuel. That's why people notice belly fat melting away first when they start fasting on carnivore. It's not just weight loss, it's hormonal recalibration. What's equally important is how this approach eliminates the roller coaster of blood sugar and cravings. When insulin is stable, hunger hormones like ghrelin and leptin rebalance. You no longer feel driven to eat every few hours. The brain stops receiving panic signals that energy is low. You experience true satiety, not from willpower, but from biology working as intended. Fasting and carnivore eating train your body to rely on fat and ketones, not glucose for fuel. That steady supply of energy keeps insulin quiet and cravings under control. Over time, this metabolic repair becomes visible in every biomarker. Fasting insulin levels drop, triglycerides fall, HDL rises, and A1C normalizes. These are signs that the body is healing from insulin resistance at the cellular level. When insulin sensitivity improves, every cell becomes more efficient at energy production. Mitochondria thrive in this environment because oxidative stress is reduced, less inflammation, better energy turnover, and a cleaner metabolic burn. That's what defines metabolic restoration. People often underestimate how much of their fatigue, bloating, and stubborn fat comes from constant insulin elevation. When you break that cycle, your body doesn't just burn fat, it heals. The liver begins clearing out stored glycogen and triglycerides, reversing fatty liver tendencies. The pancreas no longer struggles to keep up with sugar overload. Even the brain benefits with improved glucose utilization and better cognitive function. Insulin isn't just a storage hormone, it's a signal that affects every organ. Keeping it stable changes everything about how you feel and perform. The carnivore fast works because it gives your body no mixed signals. You're not grazing on healthy carbs or chasing calorie counts. You're letting your hormones do the work. Fasting lowers insulin, meat and fat keep it low, and your metabolism begins to function like it was designed to, flexible, efficient, and responsive. Over time, people who couldn't lose weight despite doing everything right finally see results. Belly fat that wouldn't budge starts to disappear because the hormonal barrier is gone. What's powerful about this approach is that it doesn't just improve insulin sensitivity temporarily, it maintains it. Every fasting cycle reinforces the adaptation. Every carnivore meal supports it. You're retraining your metabolism to stay insulin sensitive, which means long-term stability in weight, energy, and appetite is how you eliminate the root cause of stubborn fat, not just manage it. The body stops storing, starts burning, and for the first time, you're not fighting against your own biology, you're working with it. When you remove plant toxins, sugars, and processed fats while incorporating fasting, the body shifts out of a state of constant inflammation and finally returns to balance. Most people don't realize how much of their hormonal chaos, fatigue, poor sleep, stubborn fat, low libido is driven by low-grade inflammation that never shuts off. Every time you consume refined carbs, seed oils, or certain plant compounds, the immune system reacts. It's like constantly having a low fire burning inside you. Over time, that inflammation disrupts hormonal signaling, blunts thyroid function, and pushes cortisol into overdrive. The combination of fasting and carnivore eating extinguishes that fire from both sides by removing the triggers and allowing the body time to repair. When you stop eating carbohydrates and ultra-processed fats, the main sources of oxidative stress disappear. Glucose spikes drive glycation, the process where sugar damages proteins and tissues, and that's one of the biggest drivers of chronic inflammation. Seed oils compound the problem by introducing unstable omega-6 fatty acids that oxidize easily, generating free radicals that damage cells. Even plant foods high in lectins, oxalates, and phytates can irritate the gut lining and trigger immune responses. Once these are removed, the body finally gets to calm down. The gut barrier heals, endotoxins stop leaking into the bloodstream, and systemic inflammation drops. That's when hormones begin to normalize. Fasting enhances this process by reducing inflammatory signaling pathways. When you fast, insulin drops, MTR activity quiets, and autophagy kicks in. Cells start recycling damaged proteins and organelles, cleaning out the debris that contributes to inflammation. Cytokine production decreases, oxidative stress declines, and white blood cells become more efficient. It's a complete immune reset. Instead of being stuck in chronic activation mode, your immune system can finally stand down and focus on repair. People often notice joint pain disappearing, skin clearing, and energy returning because the internal burden is being lifted. This reduction in inflammation has a direct effect on hormonal balance. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is one of the first to normalize. Inflammation and blood sugar instability force cortisol to stay elevated to compensate. High cortisol keeps your body in a constant fight or flight state, raising blood sugar, breaking down muscle, and storing fat around the abdomen. When inflammation drops and energy becomes stable through fat metabolism, cortisol no longer needs to spike. It returns to its natural circadian rhythm, high in the morning for alertness, low at night for rest. That balance restores deep sleep, mood stability, and steady energy throughout the day. At the same time, thyroid function improves. Chronic inflammation interferes with the conversion of T4 to T3, the active thyroid hormone that regulates metabolism. High insulin and cortisol levels block this conversion, leaving people with symptoms of sluggish thyroid despite normal lab results. When fasting lowers insulin and reduces stress hormones, the thyroid can function properly again. The body's metabolic rate stabilizes, cold sensitivity improves, fat loss becomes smoother because the hormonal environment supports it. Sex hormones benefit too. Inflammation suppresses testosterone and disrupts estrogen balance. Men often experience low testosterone when insulin is high and inflammation is constant. The liver becomes less effective at clearing excess estrogen, leading to further imbalance. By eliminating sugars and seed oils while fasting, liver function improves dramatically. The body starts clearing out hormonal waste, allowing testosterone to rise naturally and estrogen to stabilize. Women experience similar benefits: more regular cycles, less bloating, improved mood, and fewer energy crashes. When insulin and cortisol are stable, the entire hormonal orchestra falls back into rhythm. The synergy of fasting and carnivore eating also helps regulate leptin, the hormone that controls hunger and fat storage. Chronic inflammation disrupts leptin signaling, making the brain resistant to its messages. That's why people can have plenty of stored energy yet still feel hungry. Once inflammation resolves, leptin sensitivity returns. The brain finally recognizes that the body has enough fuel and appetite naturally decreases. This is what real appetite control feels like, effortless, steady, without mental battles or cravings. Another underrated benefit of lowering inflammation through this approach is improved mitochondrial health. Inflammatory molecules damage mitochondria and impair energy production. Ketones produced during fasting and carnivore eating have anti-inflammatory properties and act as signaling molecules that protect and strengthen mitochondria. This creates a self-reinforcing loop. Less inflammation means better energy production, which means less oxidative stress and even lower inflammation over time. The result is sustainable metabolic health, not just short-term weight loss. The longer you stay consistent with this lifestyle, the more profound the hormonal and inflammatory reset becomes. You start to feel calm, focused, and stable because your body isn't constantly reacting to dietary assaults. Cortisol is no longer running the show, thyroid hormones are efficient, and sex hormones are balanced. Your metabolism isn't swinging wildly, it's smooth and predictable. The markers of systemic inflammation, CRP, triglycerides, insulin, all begin to normalize. This is what metabolic health actually means. It's not about chasing numbers on a scale or taking medications to control symptoms. It's about removing the triggers, letting the body heal, and allowing your hormones to find balance again. Fasting on carnivore creates the perfect environment for that healing to happen. No toxins, no sugar spikes, no processed oils, just nutrient-dense fuel, stable energy, and a body that finally remembers how to function the way it was designed to. When you start combining fasting with a carnivore diet, you're essentially reprogramming your body's entire energy system. Most people today are stuck in glucose dependence. Their bodies are wired to rely on quick sugar hits to get through the day. The problem with that is simple. When glucose runs out, energy crashes. You get hungry, irritable, foggy, and you need another fix. That cycle repeats endlessly because the body has forgotten how to access the massive energy stores it already has, body fat. Carnivore fasting breaks that dependency by removing carbohydrates completely and extending the gaps between meals. This forces your metabolism to remember what it was built to do, burn fat. When carbs are gone, insulin levels drop and your body's access to stored fat opens up. This is where the reprogramming begins. Fat, once locked away by high insulin, becomes your primary energy source. The liver starts converting fatty acids into ketones, providing clean, steady fuel for the brain and muscles. Instead of relying on glucose spikes, your cells start thriving on a consistent flow of fat energy. That switch doesn't just change how you burn calories, it changes how you feel, think, and perform. You go from constant energy swings to deep, stable focus. During fasting, this process accelerates. Without food intake, glucose and glycogen stores run low, and the body has no choice but to tap into fat reserves. Every hour you stay in that fasted state, fat oxidation increases. Once you eat again, and that meal is pure animal protein and fat, you reinforce the same fuel system. You're training your body with every cycle: no carbs, no sugar, no dependency, just pure metabolic efficiency. The longer you maintain this rhythm, the more seamless the transition between fasted and fed states becomes. Your body no longer panics without food because it knows exactly how to access energy from within. One of the first things people notice when this shift happens is how their cravings disappear. That's because fat-based metabolism stabilizes hormones like ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, no longer spikes uncontrollably every few hours, and leptin sensitivity improves, allowing your brain to accurately sense stored energy. You stop eating out of habit or emotional triggers because you're genuinely not hungry. The energy is steady, your brain is calm, and food stops being an obsession. Cognitive performance also changes dramatically when you're running on fat fuel. Ketones are a preferred source of energy for the brain because they produce fewer free radicals and provide more ATP per molecule than glucose. That's why so many people describe mental clarity and focus once they're fat adapted. There's no post-meal brain fog, no afternoon crashes. The brain gets a constant supply of clean energy, which supports sharper memory, better mood, and sustained attention. You start operating at a higher level, both physically and mentally, because your energy system is finally stable. The other key part of this reprogramming is metabolic flexibility. When you're locked into glucose metabolism, your body panics without constant feeding. Once you switch to fat metabolism, that flexibility returns. You can go hours, sometimes an entire day, without feeling weak or drained because you're running on stored energy. Your metabolism becomes like a hybrid engine, efficient, resilient, and able to handle long stretches without fuel. This is how humans were designed to operate. Our ancestors didn't have access to constant food. They thrived by burning fat during fasts and replenishing with nutrient-dense animal foods when they ate. Carnivore fasting replicates that ancestral rhythm perfectly. The fat adaptation process also enhances mitochondrial function, the part of your cells responsible for generating energy. When you rely on fat and ketones, your mitochondria produce energy more efficiently and generate less oxidative stress. Over time, this makes you more resilient to fatigue and inflammation. You don't just feel more energetic, your cells literally produce energy better. This is why many people who switch to this lifestyle report that their endurance, recovery, and mental drive all skyrocket. It's not a stimulant effect, it's true metabolic optimization. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of this energy reprogramming is emotional stability. When your energy is tied to sugar, your mood follows the same highs and lows. Fat metabolism flattens that curve. You feel grounded even under stress. Cortisol stays balanced. Adrenaline stays in check, and you stop chasing the next dopamine hit from food. The result is a calm, consistent energy that carries you through the day with ease. Over time, this system becomes self-sustaining. The longer you fast on carnivore, the deeper your fat adaptation gets. Your body becomes incredibly efficient at mobilizing and oxidizing fat, even at rest. That means you're burning fat 24/7, not just during workouts. It's continuous, effortless, and sustainable. You're no longer trapped by hunger cycles or energy crashes because your body runs on its own stored fuel. That's what real energy freedom looks like. You're not dependent on stimulants, snacks, or sugar. Your body has learned to run on the cleanest, most abundant energy source available, your own fat. Carnivore fasting, it isn't about restriction. It's about liberation from the constant need to eat. Once your metabolism is reprogrammed, you realize how much energy you've been wasting chasing energy. Now, your body just works steady, strong, and endlessly fueled by the power it already had all along. If you're going to combine fasting with the carnivore diet, you need to do it the right way, safely, strategically, and with respect for how the body adapts. When people first hear fasting, they often think starvation or deprivation. But this isn't about pushing the body into stress. It's about restoring its ability to run efficiently. Done correctly, this combination is one of the most powerful tools for resetting metabolism, melting visceral fat, and rebuilding real metabolic health. The foundation of a safe carnivore fast begins with hydration. When you remove carbohydrates, your body releases glycogen, and along with it, a significant amount of water and electrolytes. That's why staying hydrated isn't optional, it's essential. You're not just replacing fluid, you're replacing sodium, potassium, and magnesium, the minerals that keep your nerves firing, your muscles functioning, and your energy stable. During a fast, aim for plenty of water throughout the day and consider adding electrolytes or a pinch of high-quality salt. This simple step prevents dizziness, fatigue, and muscle cramps, and helps maintain blood pressure and energy levels as you transition into deeper fat burning mode. The next key factor is fasting duration. You don't have to start extreme, and you shouldn't. Most people begin with time restricted eating, something like 16-8, fasting for 16 hours and eating within an 8-hour window. As your body becomes more fat adapted and insulin sensitivity improves, you can naturally extend those fasts to 24 hours or even 48 without discomfort. The goal isn't to chase long fasts, it's to reach a point where fasting feels effortless. Once you're metabolically flexible, your body doesn't panic without food. It simply switches to burning stored fat. That's when fasting becomes a natural rhythm instead of a forced discipline. Refeeding is another critical part of the process that people often overlook. After a fast, your first meal should be gentle on digestion and nutrient dense. Stick to fatty cuts of meat, eggs, or fish, foods that deliver amino acids and fat without shocking the system. Avoid flooding the body with carbohydrates or processed foods, which would spike insulin and undo the metabolic benefits you just built. Think of refeeding as reinforcing the fat adapted state, not breaking it. You're refueling the body with clean energy that continues to support fat oxidation and recovery. As your body adjusts to this pattern, you'll notice how quickly it transforms your relationship with hunger and energy. The constant craving cycle disappears because you're not running on sugar anymore. You can go half a day, sometimes a full day, without even thinking about food. And when you finally eat, your meals are deeply satisfying. That's the body's feedback that it's working efficiently. Fatigue fades, inflammation drops, and focus sharpens. Many people describe this as their metabolic switch moment, when they realize their body has finally remembered how to burn fat for fuel again. In the real world, the results of combining fasting with carnivore are dramatic. People who have struggled for years with stubborn belly fat, insulin resistance, and chronic inflammation see changes within weeks. Waistlines shrink, skin clears, and joint pain disappears. Blood pressure normalizes, fasting insulin levels drop, and triglycerides stabilize. This isn't placebo, it's physiology in action. You're watching a system that's been broken by years of sugar and processed food finally reboot itself. The transformation isn't just visible in the mirror, it's measurable in every metabolic marker that matters. Hydration, electrolytes, and proper pacing are what make this sustainable long term. You're not forcing adaptation, you're guiding it. The body is built to handle periods without food, but modern diets have made people metabolically fragile. When you return to natural fasting cycles and feed the body with nutrient-dense animal foods, resilience comes back. You recover faster, think clearer, and feel more stable throughout the day. It's not uncommon for people who used to rely on 6 meals a day to thrive on 1 or 2 without any drop in performance. That's metabolic confidence, knowing your body can run off its own reserves without falling apart. For anyone starting out, the most important advice is to listen to your body. Fasting and carnivore eating are tools, not punishments. If you feel fatigued, increase electrolytes or shorten the fasting window. If digestion feels heavy after refeeding, simplify your meals. The goal is balance, not perfection. Over time, you'll find your natural rhythm, the point where fasting feels energizing, not exhausting, and eating feels restorative, not excessive. What makes this approach different is how it delivers sustainable, visible change. You're not counting calories, restricting endlessly, or chasing diets that fight your biology. You're working with it. Every fast deepens your fat adaptation. Every carnivore meal reinforces metabolic repair. And every week that passes builds more stability and energy and mood. The longer you stay consistent, the more profound the results become. Thousands of real-world transformations prove that this isn't a theory, it's a biological truth. People who were once overweight, inflamed, and exhausted have rebuilt their bodies using this exact method. They've reversed insulin resistance, lost stubborn visceral fat, and restored energy they thought was gone for good. Fasting on carnivore is not about discipline, it's about alignment. Once your hormones stabilize and your metabolism resets, your body stops fighting you, it works for you. That's when real transformation begins, and it's why this approach continues to change lives every single day.